All right, good morning. Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to Dallas Twi'lek Tactics. In this video, we're going to be going over the best characters in the game for January 2023. So I made one of these back at the end of December 2022, and I figured every month I'm going to make another one because in this game, things change. So we're going to do this a little differently. In the first video in December, I just kind of picked and choose, went through each character, telling you my thoughts. This one's the best. Then I'd click on the character. Well, no, we're going to do it a little bit more professionally this time. So let's go to this camera. You're going to see my little table. Everyone's seen this kind of ranking table before in other games. And I have all of the characters over to the left or to the right of the screen. And we're going to start with the tanks, and we're going to actually rank them. A thing to note, though, I did actually put the vanguards in melee because they're technically not tanks. You could have made I could have made a vanguard tier or column or row, I guess. But you know, like Leo does so much damage. They are really melee characters that, you know, are hybrid DPS and tanks. So we're going to leave them in melee just because the melee class is so small. If I broke out assassins versus vanguards, there'd be 3 of each in each tier. So we're going to lump those all together. Whether or not that's correct, oh well. So let's start at the tanks. As you see up here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tanks. Now, I finally picked up my first copy of Zeta. And after reviewing her kit, I do think, you know, since she is SSS tier, I do think we kind of have to just assume that she's going to be up here. Now, the problem with Zeta is that people haven't really gotten her up and tested her yet. Like, I know even Dan Heilman, who is probably the biggest content creator for Eternal Evolution, does not have Zeta Immortal. So, really, the jury's kind of out on her, and everyone kind of skips her in week 5. But, you know, we are starting to use tanks. And these guys, while they do their job okay, they just die really quickly because at endgame, they just don't cut it. So next, if we were going to pick out of these ones, which is the next best tank? And from my testing overall, it's actually going to be Oak. So we're not going to put Oak right beside Zeta. Oak is really, really, really good. You know, you're going to use him in Faction Mine where possible. So you're going to need tanks in Galactic Arena, in Summit Arena. So you are going to need tanks. So they do have some use. In Elite Chapter, they used to have, or I think it's Elite Story, you used to have to use tanks. Now you don't really have to. But in early game, if you don't have Leo, if you don't have Crete, you know, the game is going to feed you tanks. The tanks do have some utility. And I'd say after Zeta, Oak is probably the next best thing in tanks. Now, last December, I said it was Oak and Boar, 1 and 2. And while Boar is still good, he is a meat shield. I actually think that Oak is the better, is slightly better than all of these characters, simply because of his ability to stun. Because we all know there's that new team that with, I think it's Daniel, Anpu, Skur, Oak or Oisa, and I can't remember the other one. Right, but there was no healer in it. That team can work in Arena. It's got like a 1 in 3 chance of succeeding, but it does work. So Oak is a little bit better since he's a stun tank. And Oisa is actually pretty good too. And we're not going to put Oisa up as right. Like, she's not, her and Oak aren't 1 and 2, right? So we got, I think she is a little bit less than Oak, but I do use her. You can use Oisa in the CC bond in Twilight. But we're going to put Boar right with her. So I'd say that these two are very, very, very equivalent together, right? Zeta, 1, Oak, 2, and then these two tied for 3. And then Hercules is okay. He's okay. He does have his little link mechanic, but oh, there we go. But I wouldn't classify Hercules, in my opinion, at the same tier as these top 4. And then Langle, I'm sorry, if I could throw him off of this screen, I would. But we're going to leave him there. We're going to leave Queet right here. Queet is a tank, but he doesn't do tank things. Queet will, like, jump to the back line, and then he'll just hang out back there, leaving your front line, or leaving the front line unprotected. So Queet and Langle, you know, Langle's an early game character. The game is going to feed you him. You're going to get lots of copies of Langle. My recommendations are don't build him up, whereas the game is going to feed you a lot of Oysa. Early game, she's good. I still use her to this day, and to the point where she is a candidate for Hyper Evolve, because she does have uses with that AoE stun. She really, really does. So that's the tanks, right? I'd say if I had to pick, even without knowing, I think Zeta is probably going to take the cake. I understand people don't have her, but eventually you will. Healers. Okay, healers. Now, there's been a lot of contentious debate around healers since the release of Bada. Everyone thought she was good. Everyone thought her kit looked awesome, and then we started using her, and she wasn't as advertised. But Masrani, hands down, is the king of healers. He's got just so much in his kit that he brings to the field when you use him. Everybody should go for Masrani and have him as the main healer in any team. And the game actually does provide you, if you strategize correctly, free to play, you can get a legendary or immortal with a little bit of luck, Masrani, in week 4 playing this game. So Masrani, the game is very, very generous. That's awesome. Thank you, EE, for giving him. He is still the undisputed king of healing. And then, really, Bada, you know, I do like Bada. I'm never going to say she's as good as Masrani. But Bada, there's an argument. I'm going to put, since she is SSS, I am going to put her ahead of Serena. But I'd say that these two are equivalent. And that's more of a testament to Serena than Bada, being that she's a triple S and Bada's just an elite. And Serena, with her AoE defense up, she's got massive single target healing. She's great. And Bada is good too. If you want to put her, like, strategically with someone in the back row that's not going to move, you can give that attack buff or that attack up to characters, and she does do really huge burst healing, so she is effective. We can't take that away from her, but she's a single target, and Masrani's AoE healing just blows everybody out of the water. And then Laurent is the one that you're going to get given to you by the game as you play, and I still use Laurent. You're going to use Laurent. He's not poop. He's not garbage. But he doesn't compete with the other three. So that's why he's not going to be like Queet and Langle way down here. Maybe we'll just put him like equivalent to, like, say, Hercules tier. Right there, right? So he's not going to be Serena, not even going to come close, but you are going to want him. You are going to want to get him to Immortal. You are going to use him. All right, so this one's a little bit difficult. AoE DPS. In my opinion, it's undisputed Luke and Ravenna, right? And it's really hard to pick which one you use more, because I use both. In Twilight, both of them together on any energy node are absolute money. And Luke is good. I'd say Luke has an edge in PvP, whereas Ravenna has an edge in PvE content. So really, you can put them 1 and 2 however you want. We're going to say they're tied for 1, but I personally am going to put Ravenna first, mainly because of my preference. I like her more. Because this game right now has more PvE than PvP. That's going to change in the future with the addition of guild versus guild. Whereas in then, probably Luke's going to overtake. But I'm going to call them equivalent. I'm going to give the edge to Ravenna simply because there's more PvE content where she can excel versus PvP. And the both of them together in Twilight are equal because you have to run them together. So they don't have the edge there. Like I said, Luke PvP, Ravenna PvE. I'm not saying Luke can't do PvE. I'm just saying Ravenna is better. Then there's a really tough choice here. So, Ornn. I'm sorry, Ornn. We're just going to stick you there for now. Out of the remaining characters, it's going to be Falvia. And I'm going to put Nagrama. I'm going to put them equivalent. So, Nagrama is really good Well, both of them are good. Even Kane's good. Kane is the next up, so we're going to put him close. But I'm going to say that he's not as good as Nagrama and Falvia. People don't like Nagrama, but Nagrama can do a butt-ton of damage. It takes him a while to like wind up and get that ultimate off. Falvia is really good, but definitely not a Ravenna or a Luke. Nagrama, I used him in Sincero Marsh right up until and including level 15 when I didn't even have a Ravenna. And Nagrama is great for the eggs in Sincero Marsh because he'll kill all the eggs, and then his ult sustains, and he'll kill the spiders that spawn from the eggs. So just for that, I think Nagrama deserves a spot up there. And then not artists, Atlas characters, since we have so few of them, get a little bit of preferential treatment in my mind. Kane, he's also really good. He's also good in Sincero. If you have all three of these AoE characters built up, I don't know why it keeps doing that. So if you have all three of these characters built up, you're going to be able to get done Sincero without having any of these SSS. Now, you're going to want the SSS, but you can make do with these three for Sincero and get right through it, including level 15. So I'd say Kane is he's good. I'd say he's just not as good as them. And then we're going to put Omar. Well, first let's get rid of Karma. We're going to put Omar. He's not as good as Kane. He's okay. I even showed a video where he is useful in Sincero in 15. But he's just not as good as any of the ones above him. And the same kind of goes like Paluno and Murphio. I have both of them at Immortal. But, you know, Murphio, for some reason, you can't use selection cards on him. So you got to farm him the slow way. Paluno, I have people in my guild that have taken him to Immortal 5, and people just can't seem to get any decent damage out of Paluno. Sadly, that I got to put 2 Atlas characters down here, but they're going to be equivalent right there. We'll call them beneath the rest of these, and then Karma and Ornn. I know Karma is the one the game gives you, right? But really, as soon as you get anybody else, they're going to overshine. Karma and Ornn just don't do any damage. They just don't. Their kits are just not good. If you have an Immortal Karma, I'm not saying you guys can't use these characters. I'm just saying that in general, once you get all of them, you'll realize that they suck. They suck. So there's AoE DPS. Ravenna and Luke tied at the hip. You want both. But you know, even just having one to Immortal, pick your favorite and go with that one. Single target DPS. Single target DPS. This one, come on, you guys. You know this one. This one, there's no comparison. The Queen, who has reigned supreme since day one of this game in single target DPS, is Emma. I don't even have to make an argument for Emma. She is going to be available in week 2. If you guys play your pulls right, you can get at least a legendary Emma free to play, very easy. Let me take a little sip of my coffee. And she is going to be your workhorse for the entirety of the game. Emma is just too good. And then it's a little difficult. Now, Azina by herself does good damage, but really Azina pairs with Emma. But by themselves, I'm not going to put her with Emma, but she's good. I'm going to leave some gap between her and Emma, because Emma just outshines even without Azina, whereas Azina is... She has an ability where she buffs the attack of the character in the same row, and that's going to be useful. If you don't have Emma, and if you wanted to go for Azina first, you could, but keep in mind, during week 2, the game's going to give you free Emmas. It's not going to give you free Azinas, and in that case, it doesn't make sense to go for Azina early, because you will be stuck with like a red Azina, or even a yellow, because the game's not going to give you free copies. Whereas if you go for Emma, you're just going to get a higher quality burst DPS. So Azina's good. But you're probably not going to have her until mid-game or late game, when you can start getting her and then putting some gene hybrids into her. But she does keep in mind, when you do get both of them, they are spaghetti meatballs, ketchup and fries. You get the point. And then out of all these, I have to put Taylor up here. I just have to put Taylor up here. Taylor is going to be one that the game gives you early, and you're going to use him forever as well. You're going to use him to get the best scores in Terradome, and in Guild Hunt, it's Taylor and only Taylor that's going to provide your summoner team with the most boost to damage. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I have a video saying score massive points on the Turbine boss in Guild Hunt. Taylor with Soaring Medallion just does magical things to a summoner team in Guild Hunt. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I think it's in under guides on my channel. So because of that, Taylor actually beats out some of these other SSS characters. Now, this one's really difficult because I do have on my main account, I do have Moriyami and Pragor now. And they're AoE hunters, which has some utility mainly for Twilight, but if you had both of them Immortal, I think they'd be really good in Galactic Arena and Summit Arena as well. Botmark's just so good too. I think I'm gonna have to give the edge to Botmark over Moriyami and Pragor, simply for the fact that it's really difficult to get Moriyami and Pragor. Now, Pragor is a reward for passing certain stages in Twilight Lands. So you're going to get, if you're scoring really high in Twilight Lands, if you can get up to like stage 13, 14, you're going to get Pragor really fast. And then Moriyami, she is a reward from Summit Arena, and you have to get to, I do believe it's group stage 2 to get her. So given the fact that they're so exclusive, is the why I'm putting Botmark over them. Now, I'm not saying they're bad. It's just that they're really difficult to get. Like, you guys can get an Immortal Emma, Taylor, and Botmark really quickly, and then maybe a Xena faster than you're going to be able to get Pragor and Moriyami. But I am going to put them equivalent to Botmark, and Botmark's defense down and his amount of hits he puts out, he is just really good. You will be pleasantly surprised with Botmark. And this is really good that the game's going to have characters that are elites, that are really free-to-play friendly, available, that are good. So I'm going to put Moriyami and Pragor together here. I'm going to put Nautilus with them. Now, Nautilus is weird because where the first 6 characters are hunters, Nautilus is an energy character. Him and Sorietta are energy. And actually, I'm going to put Sorietta ahead of him because Sorietta is still really good, even at endgame, in places like Guild Hunt Whale Boss. Sorietta, the amount of the sheer number of hits he brings to the table, and the team you want for Guild Hunt Whale Boss, the ideal team, is Emma, Xena, Daniel, Sorietta, and Masrani. Given how good Sorietta is still and useful at endgame, I am putting Sorietta ahead of Nautilus, even though they're both energy. And really, you could almost say Sorietta is almost equivalent with Moriyami and Pragor too. I think I'm going to give Botmark 2 the edge, just because he's a hunter. And a lot of the single target DPS mechanics in this game revolve also around the hunter tag. So I will give Botmark 2 the edge on Sorietta. But I will put Sorietta ahead of Nautilus, because Nautilus is basically the SSS equivalent of Sorietta. And he does really good damage at endgame, specifically in Whale Boss as well. But again, Nautilus is really hard to get for free-to-play, even for a pay-to-win. I have Nautilus at red, whatever that is. I don't know what red's called. I keep forgetting. But the problem is you have to pick whether you want Moriyami copies or Nautilus copies, because he's also a card selector reward from Summit Arena. So I was initially picking Nautilus until I decided to switch and actually pick up a Moriyami copy this last summit. So, yes, so Nautilus, I'm not saying he's bad. Actually, none of these characters are bad except for Xander. All of these characters have utility, and I have to tell you this too, Moriami and Prygor are excellent in Twilight Lands. The fact that they're AoE DPS means that on those hunter bonds later on in the game, where there's 3 shields you have to break, they can do damage simultaneously to all those adds to get that shield down quicker. So I would say, but the problem is you gotta, so people say you have to have Moriami and Prygor together. Moriami provides, one of them provides an attack buff, or no, it's a defense buff, and the other one provides an attack speed buff. Both of them want gluttony attack speed gear, beside the point, but I need to do some testing for myself to actually prove the point that you need them together, because I don't really think you do. But Xander's not horrible. He's definitely better than Langle, Ornn, Karma, hell, even Queet. We're going to put Queet down here. Xander he's just okay. You're going to want him for Atlas Faction Mine, and the game's going to give you copies of him early. Hence why people want to make him work, and he looks freaking cool. The problem is that the way that his kit is built, he just doesn't put out the damage. Even at endgame in maxed out gear, he's just doesn't cut it. You can use him early on, but very quickly he's going to be outshone by Taylor, Botmart, Sorietta, and he's also a hunter. So Xander, while not trash, he's not good. So I'm going to move my camera now, just so that we can get my face out of the way. There we go. And now let's talk about melee characters. Assassins and Vanguards. They are your melee characters. Now, I'm going to say that there's not a single bad character in any of these teams. And the Vanguard characters have definitely gotten some love this month in January with the addition of the Hagridon Commander. That they are now the meta team in solo PvP. And I actually use Hagridon. I used Hagridon for the majority of the time throughout the entirety of Twilight Lands. So all of these characters are useful and all of them are good. But it's not even a question. He's the best character in the game. It's Leo. I don't even have to discuss him. I made a whole video talking about why he was the best character in the game. He will do more damage than most of your damage dealers. He's got a really complex kit because you can build him so many different ways, because he's based on an HP mechanic and an attack command and a lifesteal mechanic and his attack mechanic. Attack, lifesteal, and HP all synergized together. There's a couple different ways you can go. So go check out that video. I do have a how to build Leo best character in the game video. And then next, this one's a little bit tougher because my gut wants me to put Crete. Because Crete is a very, where Leo can tank, but he's really more of a damage dealer. Crete is more of a tank that also does okay damage. I'd say, all in all, it's difficult. Crete is good. And what we're going to do is I'm actually going to put Crete and Bailey. I'm going to call them equivalent. Because Bailey, if you can get him, is going to vastly improve your roster early game and mid game. Now, late game, he does fall off a little bit with the addition of Anpu. He's countered a lot easier. But you still have to contend for Bailey since he's such a good damage dealer. You really, really, really do. Bailey will dictate how you approach an opponent. He does really good damage. I still use him at endgame. I'd say in Twilight Lands, though, the assassin nodes are one of the more difficult nodes at higher levels, since we only really have Bailey's the only SSS assassin, which is a shame. Like, look, we got how many SSS single target DPS? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 2 AoEs. We got 2 healers, 1 tank, and we only have 1 SSS assassin. We really, really do need another one, but my fear is they're not going to release another one, because then that's going to take away from the exclusivity of Bailey, and a lot of people get FOMO and will buy a bunch of tickets to get or just buy Bailey outright in order to get him, given how good he is. So I'm reluctant to think that they're going to give us another SSS assassin anytime soon. We're probably going to get a tank here in a couple days. We're going to get a new one in 3 days. My guess would be a tank, but we'll see. But we really do need an assassin. So anyways, Crete and Bailey are both excellent characters. I'm going to put them equivalent together. But they're good in doing different things. But Crete can also put out really good damage. And as a free-to-play, those of you free-to-play people, you're going to have Crete far, far before you have Bailey. So we're going to put them together. They're both great. And then, so Guan Yu. Guan Yu suffers from the Zeta problem as well. With the addition of Hagridon Commander, Guan Yu is much more important. I want this guy. I really do. Because I want to pair him with Crete and Leo in the Vanguard team in Solo Arena. But I fear that he's not going to have a whole lot of use outside of that. Maybe you'll get some more. He's now with Hagridon. He's more viable in Summit and Galactic Arena. He is more viable in Twilight Lands on the Vanguard nodes. I think like I said, he suffers from the Zeta problem because on paper, he looks like he's a lot better than he was. But nobody has him to test. I haven't seen any real videos highlighting Guan Yu. The thing is with him, is these other characters, say like a Crete, he's a Vanguard, but much more of a tank. Leo is both, due to his kit. Guan Yu is a Vanguard, but he's kind of the opposite of Crete. He's going to be much more of an attacker. He has bleed mechanics, so he does damage based on bleeds. So I'm actually going to put Guan Yu, Randall, and Artis all... No, I'm not going to give them equivalent. Yes, I am going to give them equivalent. Because Randall... Artis is really, really good. He's definitely a lot better now with the addition of Hagridon as well. And I do have to give Artis a little bit of credit because the game is going to give you him really, really early. He is my first immortal character on my free-to-play account. And you're going to use him as your main tank for your definitely your first month in this game. Because then you're going to start to get Crete a little bit more developed. And I still use him in my main PvP solo team today. So he is good. And Artis has a lot of uses in Guild Hunt. Turbine Boss and Whale Boss. If the boss is under 50%, Artis is actually someone you want on your team in a Gluttony set. In PvP and beginning game, you're going to want to run him as a tank. But late game, he switches. He becomes more flexible. You can use him. And it's interesting because Randall, early game, you're going to play him as an attacker. Late game, you're going to build him as a tank. So him and Artis kind of flip roles. But Randall in PvP is actually really, really good. But you have to pair him with either Gautier or Hagridon with Pain Rune. And then he becomes a CC damage dealer. A lot of his damage is going to come from shields and Pain Rune. And you're going to want to build him more tanky because you're going to want to get off as much AoE stuns as possible. So he does become clutch. And as well, you're going to use him everywhere in early game. He's going to be good in Disa early game. He's going to be good. I used him in Sincero, sub level 10 or 10 and below. Terradome, he's going to be your guy. Him and Randall are going to be your guys in Terradome. And he does have uses in PvP late game, but he definitely is nowhere near equivalent to Leo, but Bailey, Hudson, and Crete. And Rakana, I know a lot of people crap on Rakana, but again, he's going to have a lot of uses in PvP with the same interaction with Pain Rune that Randall has. But Rakana is a little bit squishier, and his kit is really weird the way they built his kit. based on the max HP of the character that you're attacking versus your HP. He's just a weird character. But as a free-to-play as well, you're going to use him early game. And I would say late game, too, he has more uses than Xander. Say like Twilight Lands, where you need 3 assassins. There are only 3 assassins. So you are going to use him if you're going to attack those assassin stages in Twilight Lands. Versus, I guess, if you don't have Emma, which you should if you play your cards right, you could use just Taylor, Botmark, and Xander. But Xander, there's more options to get rid of Xander. So I'm going to put Rakana ahead of Xander. Is he as good as... I'm going to put him right here, actually. Because... And that's actually... I'm going to move these 2 down. I don't want to get stuck on saying that this is their equivalent of usefulness based on their positioning. But I'm trying to... It is a little bit. I would say that Rakana is better than Xander. I wouldn't say Rakana... Well, I'd say he's equivalent with Paluno and Murphy, but he's not as good as Sorietta. He's not as good as any of these characters. So, but he does have his his use cases, and he is useful at the end game as well. At the beginning game, you're going to use him in Terradome at the beginning. You're going to use him everywhere at the beginning game, and the game's going to feed you copies of Rakana. All right, support. Now, I broke up support into 2 categories, where it's funny, where I amalgamated Vanguards and Assassins into 1 category. I actually broke out supports into pure support and healers, because healers and supports are both considered supports. But really, their tasks are completely different. So this one's going to be really, really, really easy. The game's going to give you free copies of him from the Galactic Arena store. Rez is endgame PvP viable. He is endgame PvE viable. You're going to use him everywhere in Guild Hunt. You're going to use him. I use him in my solo PvP team right now. You're going to use him everywhere because he's that good, and he brings that much to the field. And then these other 2, I know some people swear by Anaruda. I'm actually going to put Anaruda way down here. Way down here because of his exclusivity again. So the only way you can get Anaruda is from... He has like it's a really, really low chance to drop from advanced ticket pulls. You can put some gene hybrids into him to get more copies of him, but to use him effectively, really you need him at exclusive 30, and he would be extremely far down the list to actually spend red runes on. That maybe in a few months, when people have him at Immortal and people have an excess, maybe the game gives us more places to get red runes and we can spend on him. For now, I wouldn't say ignore him, don't use him as food, but for now, really, you're not going to get a whole lot of use out of him. Although I've heard people say that he does have uses, but for the most part, generally, I wouldn't worry about this guy. And then Hypnos, I know some people love Hypnos. It's Hypnos, which is a weird name. You're probably going to get more use out of him than Anaruda, given that the game is going to give you an obscene amount of copies of him. People can use him as a Bailey trap, right? Use him on teams to counter assassin or displacement teams. So he does have uses. In fact, I'm going to separate him a little bit for Anaruda because of the fact that you can use the Hypnos at relatively low development to do stuff, whereas Anaruda is pretty clutch. Really, some people say you can use Anaruda, pair him with Leo. He'll group all the characters together, then Leo just spins on them and does his work. But again, like I said, Anaruda is a much more exclusive character than Hypnos. And Hypnos, they have kind of different purposes. Whereas Anaruda helps Leo, Hypnos kind of works as a CC'er more than a support. And he does have some support stuff in his kit, but really, for the most part, you're not going to be like, oh, Hypnos, there you go. There's the answer to that question. No. All right, last but not least, definitely not least, because the summoners, when I started this game, were basically poop, not garbage, and at least the poop didn't smell. They weren't a priority for anybody, although they were always needed for Ancient Altar. With the addition of Daniel and Anpu, These guys are money now. Everybody wants some summoners. Summoners are really good in this game. Daniel is definitely top 5. One of the best characters in the game. As such, we're moving him right to the front. Oh, I guess I gotta click on him first. Daniel is just amazing. You're gonna use this guy everywhere. Everywhere. His CC capability, the amount of damage he puts out. He is God tier. Daniel is God tier. Daniel's God tier. I'd say Leo is God tier. I don't know if I would want to classify any of these other characters besides those two as God tier characters. But yeah, definitely those two. Daniel's just that good, guys. So we're not even. Yeah, it's not even a question. Now. Little bit more difficult. So I am going to put Skewer and Hattie as a definitive second, because Skewer and Hattie do put out a lot of damage. They bring a party-wide attack buff, and so you can use them in other teams. You don't really necessarily have to run them with a summoner team, so they have more utility outside of a summoner team. They are really, really good. I would definitely say that they are clear number 2. And then I'm going to put Anpu and Senway together. But I'm going to say Anpu is number 3 and Senway is a very, 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 very close number 4. Senway, in many cases, can do a lot of damage. In a lot of cases, can do more damage than Skewer and Hattie. A lot of times, you can run Daniel and Senway in other teams. But then in that same breath, you can run Skewer and Hattie with Daniel and other teams. I think Skewer is better given the versatility outside of a summoner team with that party-wide attack buff. But Senway, I don't want to discount Senway. He's also a damage monster, but that's all he is a damage monster. He's a good one at that. He does his job well. He's really, really good. He's not going to put out as much damage as Daniel. Daniel has him beat hands down in every category. But Senway is a really good character. And the only reason why I put Anpu ahead of Senway is because Anpu is a CC. I was going to say CC god, but he's not a CC god. He's a CC monster. Anpu is really, really good. He is not a damage monster like Senway. But what his kit brings in PvP and in PvP elements, I've heard really good things about him in Twilight Lands. And I used him in story to push me well ahead from where I was stuck in story late game on my pay-to-win account. Anpu brings a better toolkit than Senway. So I'm going to call Anpu third, but Senway's right on his butt because of how good Senway's damage is. So I am going to say a clear-cut Daniel 1, Skewer and Hattie 2, Anpu 3, Senway 4. Which, as they should be, given that Daniel, Skewer, and Anpu are SSS characters. Now, Kalaza and Muka. I'm going to say overall Kalaza's better. He does more damage. Nowhere close to these other top 4, though. But Muka, I'm going to put him right on Kalaza's butt. Now, Muka is not going to put out the damage. People have tried, even in a gluttony set, like a crit rate gluttony build. He's not ever going to put out as much damage than Kalaza, but keep in mind, too, Kalaza's got an attack stat exclusive. Muka's got an HP stat exclusive. So I actually run Muka late game as a tank for the summoner team. Build him out with a whole bunch of HP, put him up to exclusive 10. You can run him as your tank in Ancient Altar. Also, though, Muka does have some use in late game Guild Hunt. You can use him on the Whale Boss with Artis in certain cases with an attack speed set to get actually decent results out of him. But like Kalaza, say like in Turbine 12, you might want to use Kalaza because he gets more adds out on the field. He reduces the damage from the Turbine boss. Both of them I'm going to put them linked together. So I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to put them as a collective 5. Because they do have different kits, and they are useful in different aspects of the game. They're going to be really, really good early game before you get Daniel, Skewer and Hattie, and Anpu. If you can just get Senway, Kalaza, and Muka, they will do work for you early game. Senway is going to far outclass them then, but they are going to be very, very good. And the game is going to give you Kalaza. They're going to give you a lot of copies through story mode rewards. I don't know why they feed you Kalaza, but they do. The last Rise of Heroes event gave you free Kalazas, so if you've been playing longer than a month and a half, you probably have an Immortal Kalaza already. Muka's a little bit more difficult to get. I know he is tied to the hip to the, I think the Daniel banner, and I can't remember, he's also in another banner. So if you've been around for them, you've probably got to develop Muka. If not, the only place you can really get Muka easily is from using chips in the, I do believe it's the basic store. Might be the advanced store, but I think it's the basic chip store from basic tickets. So he's a little bit harder to get. But I use Muka to this day. I use him in Ancient Altar Boss 2 in Hell. And I do believe I have a video out on that. So that's going to be the tier list for January 2023. 40 minutes long. Wow. That's unfortunate. But this was an in-depth video, and I'm going to do this every month at the end of the year because we get 2 SSS characters per month. It looks like they're giving us SSS commanders that are changing how the game is played a little bit. And yeah, that's it, guys. So best tank, Zeta. Best healer, Mazrani. Best AoE DPS, Luke and Ravenna are tied. Single target DPS, Emma. Best melee is Leo, but keep in mind I have Vanguards and Assassins linked together. Best support, non-healer, Rez. Best summoner, Daniel. That is the tier list for January 2023, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry that it was so long. We'll see you again for this video segment in February. Have a good day, guys. Cheers, peace. Bye-bye. Look at that saber talon.